I'm craving chocolate cake, lying in bed feeling terrible. My mother-in-law, Grace, demanded I get her a cake immediately. I had finally had enough of her incessant demands, and as she continued to make a racket above my head, I lost my temper. Would you just be quiet? Listen, I only have a month left to live. Get your own cake, you fool. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. I met my husband, David, through a friend, and after dating for 3 years, we got married. We don't have children yet, but we're enjoying our time together. David's family owns a small factory with about 30 employees, and they're doing well in their area. The company was founded by my late father-in-law, and I heard from David that it grew through the combined efforts of the employees. Now, David's sister, Sophia, is running the company as the CEO. By the way, she's not married. Sophia has a talent for business, and the company's performance has improved recently. It must be because of Sophia's excellent communication skills, just like her mom. David said Sophia was indeed friendly and approachable, even when we first met. Sophia, your sister-in-law, she said with a warm smile, grabbing my hand. As someone who only had brothers, I was also happy to feel like I had gained a sister. So far, it sounds like I have nothing to complain about, but that's not the case. The problem is my mother-in-law. Our company has coffee breaks at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., and I really hate those times. Here's why. Sorry, Olivia, I'm a bit tied up. Could you get Mom's coffee? When I hear that, my mood instantly drops. The family home is next to the factory, and my mother-in-law chose to retire and stay home after my father-in-law passed away. However, she seemed to cherish these coffee breaks, saying, "I've been waiting for you, Olivia." She wanted to talk to Sophia, and I felt obligated to sit with her. Naturally, she wasn't in a good mood, and as she was about to leave with a wry smile, she said, "Hey, I have something to say to you, so sit here." She complained to me until the break was over, saying, "You've been married for 3 years, and still, no kids. What can I do? Having kids isn't something you can control." If I stayed quiet, she became even more irritated. Why the long face? I wonder why David chose someone like you. Plus, given your parents, who knows how long you'll live? The sooner, the better, she said with a sigh. Hearing her say that, especially about my parents, really gets me down. There's a reason for that. When David and I decided to get married and went to meet his family, this happened. You don't have parents? My mother-in-law looked shocked when I told her. Of course, it's not like I never had parents. My mom passed away from cancer when I was 10, and my dad died of a heart attack 10 years later when I was 20. My memories of my mom are vague, but my dad raised my brother and me all by himself. I deeply regret that he passed away before I could repay his kindness. When people hear about my situation, they usually look at me with pity and say, "You must have had a hard time." But my mother-in-law was different. "So, you might not live long either, huh?" She actually said that while I was stunned by her response. What a rude thing to say, how insensitive. My husband, David, said that despite that, my mother-in-law kept grumbling, insisting it was an important issue. Should I reconsider this marriage? Just as I was thinking that, Sophia, who had been quiet until then, slammed her hand on the table and said, "What are you talking about?" She said it so quietly that everyone in the room froze. Then my mother-in-law said, "Right, Sophia, you agree with me, don't you?" That's what she said. Sophia coldly responded, "What?" I told Mom, David chose Olivia himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that? That's what she told my mother-in-law with cold eyes. This seemed to shock my mother-in-law, who adored her daughter. From then on, she stopped making snide comments, except when we were alone. Even during the twice-daily coffee breaks, she looked disappointed when I brought her coffee instead of Sophia. David and I rented a room near his family home, so the only time I had to endure her complaints was during those 10-minute coffee breaks. I'm so glad we don't live together. But my peace was suddenly shattered that year when a record-breaking hurricane brought a lot of misfortune my way. Olivia was hurting, something terrible had happened. I'd never heard David sound so panicked. I rushed to the living room, only to find it in complete disarray. What is this? Our ceiling was leaking terribly due to the hurricane. It wasn't just our room, the owner contacted us to say it was the same in other rooms. It seemed impossible to repair while living there, so we had to find temporary housing. Sophia cheerfully suggested, "Why are you worrying? Just live with us. Your commute will be 30 seconds. She said that with an innocent look on her face. So we ended up staying with David's family for a while. Welcome home, David. The leak must have been tough, but Mom is happy we can live together again, my mother-in-law greeted us cheerfully. But David mostly ignored her, like a teenager in a rebellious phase. Finally, she said, "Oh, Olivia, you're here too? I didn't notice, because you're so quiet. Smile more." Frustrated, my husband made a face, and all I could do was force a smile, knowing we'd be staying there for a while. After moving in together, I witnessed something quite peculiar. The first time I saw it was during dinner on our first night living together. Wanting to show my gratitude, I cooked dinner, bread soup and steak. It wasn't a glamorous menu, but my mother-in-law and sister-in-law said it was delicious and ate it all. I remember feeling genuinely relieved. After a while, my mother-in-law suddenly got up and brought a container from the fridge, humming a tune. She opened it and piled a ton of its contents onto her steak. Mom, you're still eating that stuff?" My husband, sitting next to me, looked disgusted. Sophia, my sister-in-law, rolled her eyes and said, "She won't stop no matter how many times I tell her. I've given up." She then burst into laughter. At first, I couldn't tell what was on top of the steak. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was jam. While sweet sauces on meat aren't unheard of, adding jam to a seasoned steak was just bizarre. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? That's what she said, looking quite pleased with herself. Honestly, it gave me heartburn just watching her. For the record, I'm not a fan of sweet sauces on meat. Come on, Olivia, why don't you try it? It's delicious, my mother-in-law said, turning to me. I didn't want to eat it either, but I forced a smile. Apparently, that wasn't the reaction she was hoping for. I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example. With that parting shot, she retreated to her room, leaving me speechless as she stormed off. My husband and sister-in-law apologized, saying, sorry, Mom's at it again with her nonsense." Apparently, my mother-in-law had a serious sweet tooth and didn't feel her day was complete without eating a cake. Amazingly, her annual health checkups always came back normal. Come to think of it, she's always eating cake during our 3 p.m. coffee breaks. I like cake too, but not every day, it would get monotonous. And what about blood sugar levels? I've always been cautious about my health, especially since both my parents had short lifespans. So my mother-in-law's jam steak was quite a shock. Wait, does Sophia buy the cake every day? Caught off guard, Sophia admitted, yeah, she makes me go buy it. She says it's embarrassing for her to do it herself. Thanks to that, I became good friends with all the local cake shops, Sophia said, laughing. Watching this, my husband David said, Sophia, this isn't a laughing matter. Mom's getting older, she needs to start caring about her health. I've always left it to Sophia to deal with Mom, and I feel bad about it. With that, my husband continued to look exasperated. Well, I think you guys will have to help out more from now on, Sophia said with a cheerful face, and I braced myself for more interactions with my mother-in-law. Living with my in-laws made my commute much shorter, so I took the initiative to do household chores before and after work. I tried to engage my mother-in-law in conversation, but she often gave me the cold shoulder or outright ignored me. Despite that, she never missed an opportunity to complain about the kids during our coffee breaks. Since moving here, I'd had more bad days, and it must have been the stress. My spirits were low, and my husband noticed. He offered multiple times to go to the doctor with me, suggesting, "Let's move out and stay at a hotel temporarily." But I declined because it felt like a waste of money, and the nearest hotel was still a bit far. Then the worst thing happened, a business trip for a whole week. I was speechless at the news from my husband. The reason for my despair? Sophia, my sister-in-law, would be going too, meaning I'd be alone with my mother-in-law. Yes, I'm saying that my husband offered to take me with him, but I thought, it's just a week. I hope I can handle it, especially since I still wasn't feeling well. On the day they left, Sophia sent me a mother-in-law survival kit. I couldn't help but laugh as I read the guide my husband had given me for my phone. If anything happens, just feed her cake, and you'll be fine. The list included local cake shops and my mother-in-law's favorite cakes from each. For someone like me who was bracing for a tough week, this information was a godsend. In a week, our home renovations would be done, and we could move back. I thought I could manage, but that optimism crumbled on the first night. When I returned from work, my mother-in-law was blocking the entrance. "You know why I'm angry, don't you?" "No, I don't." "I'm not psychic," I replied, losing patience. She snapped, "You missed both the 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. coffee breaks today." Her words caught me off guard. With my husband and Sophia away and end-of-month tasks piling up, I'd completely forgotten about my mother-in-law's coffee breaks. I never had a coffee break myself. I thought she'd understand since she used to work, but she yelled the moment we were alone. "You start this harassment, you wicked woman," she said with an angry look on her face. I felt a huge disconnect with her. Suppressing my anger, I thought, it's just a few more days, and said, "I did buy cake during my lunch break. It's in the office fridge." "Sorry, I didn't bring it here." Her face instantly changed from angry to smiling. "Let's forget about today. Don't forget tomorrow, okay?" She cheerfully went back to her room. I'll just call her the cake demon from now on. From then on, I never forgot the coffee breaks, knowing how troublesome it would be to upset my mother-in-law. On the day my husband and Sophia were due back, I felt so stressed that I was hit with nausea, headaches, and a loss of appetite. I took the day off and went to the hospital. The doctor told me, "It's pretty bad. Can your family come right away?" I couldn't stop crying at the doctor's words. I was told I had cancer, and at most, I had 6 months, maybe even just 1 month to live. I returned home with tear-streaked face and a shaky body, lying down on the bed. The door burst open. "What are you doing, skipping work?" "Sophia and David are working hard, and you're slacking off," my mother-in-law screeched. Her words worsened my headache. I didn't have the energy to respond, so I just said, "I'm not feeling well," and closed my eyes. My mother-in-law didn't seem to like it either. She didn't want to leave the room and still complained to me, saying things like, "That's why you can't have kids, and who knows if you'll live long?" I just kept silent, pretending to sleep. Then, out of nowhere, she asked about today's coffee break. Is she really this stupid? I thought, opening my eyes to see her standing over me. "Grace, I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well enough to go shopping today. Could you please?" She cut me off. "I don't care. I want chocolate cake now. Go buy it." "You're probably faking it," she screamed at me louder than ever. My frustration exploded, and I shouted at the woman in front of me who was selfish like a child, "Shut up. Listen to me. I have 1 month to live. Go buy your own damn cake, you idiot. My words seemed to stun my mother-in-law, who looked at me with wide eyes. Then, from behind her, my husband and sister-in-law entered the room. Mom, what are you doing? And Olivia, what do you mean by one more month? My husband had a pale face, and my sister-in-law looked equally concerned. Oh, weren't you coming back tomorrow? Ignoring the visibly shaken mother-in-law, my husband came to my side. I felt so relieved by his action that I burst into tears. I can't take it anymore, I sobbed. The doctor says it might be cancer, and I'm not feeling well, but you keep nagging me to go buy cake. Enough is enough. Stop bothering me about the kids too. Just leave me alone, you idiot. I let out all my resentment towards my mother-in-law while crying. My husband and sister-in-law looked at my mother-in-law with cold eyes. Sending a sick person to buy cake? Are you stupid? Sophia, who's usually all smiles, had a face I'd never seen before, a terrifying one. My husband raised his voice as he said, "You've been making snide remarks about the kids." Look, I didn't say anything because it's a private matter, but the reason we can't have kids is me. In reality, about a year after we got married, we consulted a doctor because we were having trouble conceiving. The test showed that I was fine, but my husband's numbers were low. He felt really down about it and kept apologizing to him. Hello? Yes, right now. My husband just got home. Okay, understood. The doctor who had called earlier sounded very urgent, asking us to come right away. The anxiety began to well up, and I started to cry. It's okay, Olivia. Can you stand? I'm with you, my husband said, also on the brink of tears. We rushed to the hospital. As we were leaving, I caught a glimpse of mother-in-law getting a stern lecture from Sophia. When we arrived at the hospital, we were immediately ushered into a room where the doctor and even the hospital director were waiting to offer us a deep apology. They had misdiagnosed me. According to the doctor, they had mixed up my medical records with another patient who had the same name and birth date as me. I couldn't believe such a thing could happen, but the doctor looked extremely worn out. This incident was later covered in a local news segment, and the hospital vowed to review its working conditions. I'm not a specialist, but Olivia's symptoms might be. We were then referred to another hospital. When we returned to my in-law's house, mother-in-law seemed to have been scolded by Sophia and was shrinking in her seat. Sophia later told me that she was worried that her newlywed son might lose his wife and be heartbroken. It might be love turned inside out, but it was a real hassle seeing our tear-streaked faces. Even mother-in-law broke down, asking, "Did I really do something that bad?" She started crying, and Sophia asked, "So what about Olivia?" With a concerned look, I replied, "I'm pregnant," tears of joy filling my eyes. My husband was also shedding tears of happiness beside me. We immediately went to the maternity hospital as advised. It's still early, but yes, you're pregnant. We can confirm the heartbeat. Hearing that, we both burst into tears, even though we were in a hospital. Sophia also cried, saying, "I'm so glad, so very glad." As for what happened next, Sophia got engaged to her long-term boyfriend and moved to another state with him after quitting her job. We had heard about this before, so it wasn't a surprise. My husband, who was taking over as the new CEO, seemed to have his hands full with client visits. The business trip, by the way, was for that reason. He told me later that he was able to come home a day early because it ended sooner than expected. Mother-in-law seemed to know nothing about it, asking, "What? Getting married, quitting her job, and moving to another state?" She was shocked, and Sophia told her, "Yeah, I told you. Remember?" Mother-in-law was in a daze, and we all laughed. We returned home to find our leaky roof repaired, and our room looking brand new. We cheered in delight. Things remained awkward with mother-in-law. My husband was angrier than I was and said he never wanted to see her again. But mother-in-law started showing up occasionally during our coffee breaks, holding not cake but small snacks like biscuits. She had stopped the daily cakes and jam steaks, apparently trying to be more health conscious now that she knew a grandchild was on the way. Employees who had worked there since my father-in-law was CEO seemed happy to see mother-in-law, so I realized she wasn't inherently a bad person. Our conversations gradually increased, and she stopped complaining. When our daughter Emma was born, mother-in-law transformed. She started doing things like buying diapers and leaving side dishes for dinner, saying, "Feel free to eat. You're always working so hard." Even when she knew I was home, she'd send a message and leave without ringing the doorbell. The side dishes were in a cooler, and I appreciated her thoughtfulness. I felt I could get along with this version of mother-in-law. What really convinced me was when Emma was born. Mother-in-law took my hand and said, "Thank you, Olivia, really thank you." Seeing her tears, I knew she was sincere. Sophia also seems to be doing well and recently announced her pregnancy. It seems like it won't be long before we all gather at the in-laws' house for a friendly meal.